she'd have made a formidable monarch, without a doubt, because it is duty before self.
Many people have been a fan of Princess Anne because of her down-to-earth behavior. She is perhaps the royal family member people can relate to the most. But recently, she started to prioritize her family, and King Charles is not amused. What caused this change, and how did it impact their relationship? Come with us as we look into her tragic life and find out what led her to make such a big choice. Let's look at how Princess Anne finally got her powerful message to King Charles, which shocked everyone. The tragic early life and education of Princess Anne. A lot of people think that a princess's life is like a fairy tale, but Princess Anne's has been full of sadness from a very young age. Anne was born at Clarence House on August 15, 1950. She was Princess Elizabeth and Philip, Duke of Edinburgh's only child and only daughter. She didn't have the kind of fairy tale-like childhood that most people think royal kids do. Even though Princess Anne was born into a world of wealth and tradition, her youth was marked by distance, duty, and expectations that were hard on her from a very young age. Anne's life changed dramatically when her mother became Queen Elizabeth II and became Queen of England in 1952. She was only 18 months old at the time. With this change, her mother was no longer just a mom. She was now the Queen of the United Kingdom. Just like her older brother Charles, Anne was given to governesses and nannies to care for. Katherine Peebles was given the job of taking care of Anne and her siblings. Her early schooling took place inside the walls of Buckingham Palace, where teachers helped her learn about the world. This setup was normal for the royal family, but it didn't allow for the normal connection between a parent and child that many people have. People have often thought of Queen Elizabeth as a distant mother because of her royal tasks, but she has always denied this. In an interview in 2002, Anne fought hard for her mother, saying there was no proof that she wasn't getting enough care. This type of upbringing was similar to Queen Elizabeth's own. The Queen was raised emotionally distant, and her parents were often busy with royal tasks, so governesses and tutors took care of her schoolwork while they were away. Anne's training went in a similar direction. When she was 13 in 1963, she was sent to Benenden School in Kent, a famous boarding school. She left the safety and comfort of home to be with her peers. Although this kind of split happens a lot with royal children, it was a hard time for them. Anne continued to study and became more independent while she was at Benenden. She had achieved 6 GCSEs and 2 A-levels by the time she graduated in 1968, which was a great accomplishment for someone who had to live up to royal expectations. Her achievements in school were impressive, but her love of horses became the most important thing in her life. Her love of horses would become one of the things that made her unique, and it would help her do a lot of great things in the world of professional sports. One of the most interesting things about Princess Anne's life is her job as an equestrian. In the early 1970s, she became known as a skilled and dedicated rider who competed at the top levels of horse racing around the world. She reached a major milestone when she won the individual title at the European Eventing Championships in 1971. This was an amazing success that cemented her place in the equestrian world. With this win, she became the first member of the British royal family to win a European title in any event. Over the years, she stayed dedicated to horseback riding, and in 1976, she represented Great Britain in eventing at the Olympics in Montreal. Even though she had a lot of problems during the race, she never gave up her love for horses. Anne found meaning in equestrian activities and a way to escape the strict rules of royal life. This helped her do well in a field where being a princess did not automatically mean success. But Anne's royal tasks continued to shape her life, even though she had done many good things. When she was 18, she started going to royal events, which meant she had to deal with all the problems that come with being famous. The royal walkabouts, which were common in the 1970s and were meant to make the royal family more accessible to the British people, were a particularly difficult part of her job. But for Anne, these walkabouts were very hard, especially since she was a girl. In an honest conversation, she told them she didn't like them. Her success in horseback riding gave her a sense of personal satisfaction, but it didn't keep her from realizing how hard it was to grow up as a princess. She often complained about the responsibilities and demands that were put on her. This was shown by an honest statement in which she said that she had not asked to be born a princess. Anne has always had a special place in the royal family because she is the second child of Queen Elizabeth II. While her brother Charles was being trained to be king, Anne made her way by being successful in horseback riding and always doing what was right as queen. As you will see later, she learned early on in life how important it is to make sacrifices, which is a value she still holds dear, even though her brother is now king. The scandalous first marriage and the quiet second union. But Princess Anne's personal life was not at all what people usually imagine when they think of royalty. A captain in the Queen's Dragoon Guards named Mark Phillips was her first husband. Their wedding was very public and well attended. They met at a meeting of horse lovers in 1968, and the fact that they both loved horses seemed like a good start for their relationship. In May 1973, they said they were going to get married. A few months later, they had a big wedding at Westminster Abbey that more than 100 million people around the world saw. Even though their relationship started out like a fairy tale, it was full of drama. There were rumors that both Anne and Mark were cheating on their partners. There were lots of stories about these affairs in gossip magazines. Phillips was linked to some women, such as an Indian call girl, a British TV host, and a Canadian public relations expert. Anne was also the subject of claims that she was seeing actor Anthony Andrews and her bodyguard. The most important rumors, though, were about Commander Timothy Lawrence, who was the Queen's equerry at the time. By 1989, the marriage was over, and the couple said they were splitting up. It was the last straw in their already troubled relationship when it came out that Phillips had fathered a child during a one-night stand with art teacher Heather Tonkin from New Zealand. Later, a DNA test proved that he was indeed the father, which made the situation even worse. It was clear that they were no longer married in 1992. Their marriage had been marked by both public and private scandals. On the other hand, Anne's second marriage was much less eventful. In December 1992, she married Commander Timothy Lawrence in a small wedding at Kay Kirk, which is close to Balmoral. The wedding this time had only 30 people, which was very different from her first wedding. Anne wore a simple white jacket and knee-length dress, which was very different from the fancy dress she wore to Westminster Abbey. Timothy didn't get any peerages, and he and his wife lived a pretty low-key life. Anne's past was full of gossip and scandals, but she found a more peaceful and long-lasting relationship with Timothy when she was out of the spotlight. Other tragic moments in Princess Anne's life. If we listed all the bad things that happened to Princess Anne, it would be hard to believe how strong this amazing queen has been. She and her husband, Mark Phillips, were returning to Buckingham Palace from a charity event on March 20th, 1974. That night, one of the scariest things that ever happened to her happened. As their car drove through the mall, a Ford Escort quickly got in the way, making them have to stop. After that, there was a dramatic and dangerous attempt to take the princess hostage. Many people were hurt when Ian Ball, the driver of the Ford Escort, jumped out of his car with a gun and opened fire, hitting James Beaton, Anne's security officer, and Alex Callender, her chauffeur. A close reporter named Brian McConnell also tried to help, but he was shot in the process. Ian's plan was simple. He was going to kidnap Princess Anne and demand a ransom, saying that the money would help the National Health Service. But Anne wasn't the type to run away. When Ball told her to get out of the car, she famously said, "Not bloody likely." The situation could have turned deadly if Ron Russell, a passing pedestrian and former boxer, hadn't stepped in at the right time. When Ron saw all the noise, he jumped into action and gave Ian a quick punch to the back of the head. This distracted the would-be thief and let Anne get away. Soon after, the cops showed up and caught Ian after a short chase. Even though Anne wasn't hurt physically, the event sent shockwaves across the country. It was said that her brother, who is now King Charles, was very worried about her safety and later pushed for stronger security measures for the royal family. This event not only changed the rules for protecting the royal family, but it also made Anne even more famous as a strong, brave woman who wouldn't be easily scared. The kidnapping attempt wasn't the only problem Princess Anne had to deal with. In just 2 years, in 1976, she was getting ready to fight for Great Britain in the Olympics in Montreal as part of their equestrian team. Anne was a skilled rider who had inherited her mother's love of horses. She was determined to serve her country. However, things didn't go as planned when she had a major accident while training. When her horse fell, it rolled over her, hurting her head, hurting her bones, and breaking one of them. Most people would give up on their Olympic dreams after getting hurt like that, but Anne wasn't one of those people. Even though she couldn't remember what happened and had to stay in the hospital for a few days, she made an amazing recovery. With only a few weeks' break, she was back on her horse, determined to make the Olympic team, and she did. Even though she didn't win a gold, the fact that she even competed showed how tough and determined she was. In 2002, Princess Anne was in the news again, but this time it was because of something that happened with her dog, Dodie. Two boys on bikes rode by while Dodie was walking her 3 bull terriers. She suddenly chased after them and knocked them off their bikes. Anne was charged with not being able to handle her dog after things got worse. Anne didn't hide from the effects like most royals do. She faced them head-on. Dodie admitted guilt in court, paid the fines, and was told to get the right training. Because of this event, Anne is the only member of the British royal family who has ever been convicted of a crime. It was said that her brother, King Charles, gently helped her through this ordeal. He had always admired how hands-on she was with life. Besides these public trials, Anne also had to deal with her own sadness. Her father, Prince Philip, died in 2021 at the age of 99. Her mother, Queen Elizabeth II, died in September 2022 at the age of 96. She had been married for 96 years. The whole royal family was heartbroken when both parents died so quickly. However, Anne, who was always strong and steady, became King Charles's main source of support as he took the throne. Sources say she was very helpful with running the family business in the days after their mother died. She even greeted Prince Harry when he came to Balmoral to mourn his grandmother. Anne has gained respect from both the public and her family for her ability to stay calm and keep going even after a terrible loss. There are many times when King Charles has turned to her for help and advice because he knew she would always keep her cool. The unbreakable bond between King Charles and Princess Anne. King Charles and his sister Princess Anne have always had a close relationship, but many people don't know how deep that relationship goes. They grew up in the public eye together and have shared both private and public joys and duties. Their relationship as siblings has been through a lifetime of problems, fun, and deep loyalty. Now that King Charles is king and Anne is one of his closest and most trusted servants, their bond is stronger than ever. Charles and Anne are only 21 months apart in age, so it makes sense that they spent a lot of their early life together at Buckingham Palace. After their mother was crowned queen, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip often left their siblings in the care of nannies and governesses while they did royal tasks. During these important years, being close in age helped them form a close bond, even though Anne, who was known for being independent, often questioned her brother's claim to be the future king. Close family friends say that Anne was always sure of herself and abrasive, even when she was a child. She often took charge of situations, which made the other kids laugh. Their love of horses and being outside was a big part of what made their relationship stronger. They had a lot in common, which made their bond stronger. Charles and Anne liked spending time in the country, riding horses together, and going to polo events when they were young. Anne was good at sports and liked to try new things, so sometimes she was better at physical tasks than her older brother. Charles, who is more sensitive and introspective, has always respected Anne's strength and confidence, even if it meant his younger sister teased her every once in a while. Charles and Anne have always felt very responsible for their family and the royal institution, even though they were rivals as kids. People who were paying attention saw how close they were during big royal events. In 2022, after the death of their mother, Queen Elizabeth II, they did something very moving. Anne, who was always responsible and steady, was with Charles as he got ready to become king while they led the funeral parade for their mother. It was clear that the bond they had had since they were kids was stronger than ever. The fact that Anne was always there for him during this time showed how close they had been all their lives. Anne was very important at his coronation. She was given the prestigious title of Gold Stick in Waiting, which has always been given to someone who is responsible for the monarch's safety. This award shows how much she cares about her brother and how much Charles trusts and respects her. Anne once again proved that she wasn't just a figure of honor during Charles's rule by riding behind her brother on horseback during the coronation procession. In the past few years, their relationship as siblings has changed. Charles, who is now king, has relied on Anne a lot, and she has become one of his closest friends. Anne has been the monarchy's eyes and ears, and she has been a rock of support for her brother by taking on tasks that have made his new job easier. When Charles told everyone in February 2024 that he had cancer, Anne quietly stepped up to help out, stepping in for him when needed while still keeping up with all of her royal duties. As one of the busiest members of the royal family, Anne never wavered in her love for her brother. Their relationship isn't just about duty and care, though. There have been times over the years when Charles and Anne have been silly and fun together. which shows how much they love each other. As the parties for Charles's coronation went on, Anne called her brother Old Bean, a nickname that made people laugh and showed off the playful banter that has always been a part of their relationship. Times like these tell us that Charles and Anne are still brothers and sisters, even though they have royal titles and responsibilities. They are connected by years of shared experiences and respect for each other. Even though Charles and Anne have both had hard times in their lives, they have always found strength in their relationship. Anne and Charles have always been there for each other. Whether it was Anne helping her brother through the death of their parents or Charles being there for her during hard times, like her well-known split from Mark Phillips. All of this love and loyalty came to a head in a quiet disaster. For Annie, seeing her brother become king and lead the people was hard, and she could see how the weight of duty was making him weak. In private, away from the public eye, she told him she worried about his health because she knew that being king would make things harder over time. After Charles was diagnosed with cancer in February 2024, Anne left him a sad message. It would be seen as the last thing she did for her brother. Princess Anne and Queen Camilla's tense relationship. Before we talk about Princess Anne's sad message to King Charles, it's important to look at her friendship with Camilla. Anne, the Princess Royal, is known for her strong work ethic and unwavering sense of duty. However, her relationship with Camilla has not always been smooth. Both women have been part of the same royal family for decades, but they have never really become friends. Anne, who puts duty above all else, doesn't like how Camilla takes her royal duties as seriously as Anne does. One big difference between them was when Camilla, who is now queen, took a bad vacation to rest and recharge after helping King Charles deal with his cancer. On the other hand, Anne had happily taken on more than her fair share of royal duties. This made her think that Camilla's break was not only pointless, but also almost silly at a time when the royal family was having trouble with staffing issues and too much work. Anne, who always works well with others, didn't understand why Camilla needed a break after only a few events. People close to the royal family noticed her disapproval and quietly commented on how well she managed to keep her temper in check, even though they were growing worried about Camilla's commitment to the part. Anne has kept a diplomatic front in public, but she did give someone a compliment that was slightly backhanded, implying that they were not naturally good at the part, but that they were doing a good job with it. Their relationships got more complicated as time went on, especially as things happened in the royal family. People say that Anne's worries about Camilla's suitability for the part are much stronger than her public behavior would lead you to believe. Anne has spent her whole life helping her brother Charles, so the question of whether Camilla is really ready for the difficult job of queen is a big one for her. Anne has always thought that Camilla should be called queen consort instead of just queen, because she thinks that the term queen has a lot of historical weight. For Anne, this difference is very important because she values custom and the duties that come with being a princess. For her, the title queen means a level of duty and devotion that Anne has shown her whole royal life. Even though this tension isn't shown in public very often, it has been a source of worry in royal circles, especially since Charles is now king and has a lot of duty. The way Anne thinks Camilla handles her royal tasks and the problem with the title make their already tense relationship even more complicated. Princess Anne's tragic messages. Many people in the royal family were shocked when Princess Anne wrote a very sad letter to King Charles saying she didn't want to be included in his plans to give her a fortune. Anne's selfless act, which came from her sense of duty and loyalty to the throne, shocked even Queen Camilla. She is said to have felt Anne's quiet intensity during a family meeting where she told everyone about her decision. Even though the message was sincere, it was also practical. By walking away from the estate, Anne knew that she would free up Charles from a lot of financial stress. British law says that when the monarch receives an estate from a dead king or queen, the assets can pass without being taxed. This means that King Charles would not have to pay the 40% inheritance tax that would have been due if the inheritance was split among brothers. Anne's choice was made with the future of the kingdom in mind, making sure that it would continue to run smoothly and efficiently. As Queen Elizabeth's only daughter and a royal who always did her job, Anne knew that the sovereign grant would continue to help her with her royal tasks. Anne was ready to pay for her own personal costs, unlike her brothers, Prince Andrew and Prince Edward. Because Anne gave up a large inheritance, she once again showed her unshakable devotion to the crown and her family. This action was a perfect example of how Anna has always put her family and the Queen ahead of her own needs. She has been known for her quiet, unwavering commitment in public. Reports say that Camilla's response to Princess Anne's selfless choice showed how different the two women really are. Anne made the sacrifice because she loved her brother and the Queen very much. Camilla, on the other hand, looked shocked and couldn't believe that someone would voluntarily give up such a big personal inheritance. Many people thought Camilla's shock was because she couldn't understand how big of a deal such selflessness was. It was a stark reminder of how the public often sees her as more self-centered and less committed to the long-term future of the throne. This feeling got stronger when Anne calmly explained that her choice was for the good of the kingdom and her family. Some people thought Camilla's reaction wasn't just about Anne's choice, but also about how hard it was for her to understand such dedication. This made the ongoing debate about whether Camilla is really ready to be queen even stronger. Her goals have been called into question many times, especially when compared to Anne's strong sense of duty. But King Charles was clearly moved by Anne's kind act and felt very touched. They had been responsible for each other and been loyal for years, but this moment made their bond as siblings even stronger. Charles was deeply moved by Anne's readiness to put the monarchy ahead of her own needs. Some people who saw Charles cry couldn't help but wonder if his tears weren't just for Anne's sacrifice, but also because his wife Camilla wasn't as devoted and supportive. No matter how hard things get for Charles as king, his sister Anne has always been there for him, giving him strength in a way that Camilla has found hard to match. Many people have thought over the years that King Charles is quietly sad that he doesn't have a partner who will always be there for him, like his sister, Princess Anne. Anne's choice to not receive any of Queen Elizabeth II's inheritance showed how selfless and devoted she was to her brother and the throne. Anne did not get a straight inheritance from her mother, even though she worked hard for many years. The entire estate, worth about $850 million, was given to King Charles. This protected the crown's finances, which is legal in Britain and does not result in inheritance tax. Anne didn't make this choice because she was afraid of losing someone close to her. She did it because she felt very responsible. She agreed to the choice long before anyone else did. She gave up her due share in secret to protect the future of the monarchy. Her actions made it even clearer that she was a devoted Charles fan who would always care about the royal family and its history, even if it meant giving up a big personal gain. Anne's quiet determination to take on this duty was very different from that of other members of the royal family. It added to her image as a steady and selfless person who would always put the institution ahead of herself.